Do you think that our rights are for sale? I would say categorically and emphatically no, but there's a stupid new law that's been presented in Congress that has brought this up as a point of conversation, so here we are. First, I want you to imagine if the FCC put out a rule or if a new law had been passed that gave the FCC power to put you through an approval process and a hefty tax to open a social media account. That in order for you to open up one of these accounts on a single platform for a single purpose to a single person in a single state, you would have to go through the process of filling out application paperwork, fingerprinting, submitting a passport photograph, and other things, submitting that to the FCC on top of a $5,000 tax, a $5,000 submission fee in order for them to consider whether or not you might be approved to exercise your freedom of speech. And then if you want to change the purpose, if you want to change the platform of that one account, change the name even, that is an additional $5,000 and submission process. If you want to use it outside of the state, you simply have to notify your state FCC representative and notify the FCC themselves. And if ever you want to branch out and go to a different platform, you have to do the whole thing all over again. If you think that sounds crazy, that's because, well, it is, and thankfully it's not a reality just yet. But I want you to imagine if that type of application and tax regime existed for not just freedom of speech, but freedom of religion, freedom to a speedy trial to a jury of your peers, protection against unlawful search and seizure, cruel and unusual punishment, or anything else listed in the Bill of Rights. If you think that all of those are crazy, if you think that that process and tax being applied to any of the other constitutionally protected rights, then you should think that it is equally egregious and absurd, because that is currently how things are applied to the Second Amendment. Certain types of guns have those exact rules put upon them. And I'm not talking about like machine guns and rocket launchers. I'm talking about a simple rifle that has a barrel under 16 inches, or a shotgun with a barrel under, I think it's 18, and minus the $5,000 tax part. They're working on that though. That's the bill that was presented. The bill presented in Congress, I can't remember if it's starting in the House or the Senate, but either way, somewhere in Congress, somebody decided that it is necessary that we adjust that $200 tax, which was recently brought down to zero, thankfully, but they're trying to bring it right back and adjust it for inflation to $4,700, almost $5,000. That's where I got that number. And again, that's egregious. You should think that on principle, that is an egregious, that's an affront to constitutional rights. Now, trust me, it's not lost on me the direct and immediate negative possible effects of somebody misusing a gun rather than somebody misusing speech. That's not lost on me at all. I understand that and I sympathize with that deeply, trust me. However, one person with one gun can go commit heinous acts and ruin a couple dozen lives. But one person with a bad idea that is really, really convincing, picture whoever you think of, I don't care like what your politics are, whoever you think of, one really bad person that has really bad ideas, that's really convincing, can do a whole lot more damage, unimaginable evils. And it, because of the potentiality of that one person, we don't restrict your speech in the manner of apply for a permit and pay $5,000 to go do these things that are normally protected under the First Amendment. And I mentioned just a moment ago that the tax was brought down from $200 down to zero, which is great. I wish the whole thing would just go away, but $200 down to zero. You might hear that and think, oh, $200 in today's money, that's not a whole lot. Like, I get it. It's a decent amount. It's not chump change for a lot of people, but if I want it that badly, I'll just fork up the $200. When this law was passed and this tax was put in place, that's when it was $200. It's been $200 since the start in 1934. That's how the inflation-adjusted $4,700 came about. It literally just went back to the day it was enacted and adjusted for inflation. Now, I want you to imagine if these other constitutional rights, speech, trial, lawyer, search and seizure, all those other things, if every single American had to submit for approval, submit a request for consideration, and at the cost of $5,000 per instance, how many people not just would have to reconsider it, but simply could not afford that. How many people could simply not afford a speedy trial, a lawyer for things that maybe they didn't even do, or any other of the civil rights that we take for granted as guaranteed in the Bill of Rights? Wealthy people, sure, they can just pay that. They'll have a lawyer file that for them and pay the fees because it doesn't mean anything to them. But if you're living at or below the poverty line or anywhere, within $30,000 of that, and you had to pay, probably more, honestly, but if you had to pay $5,000 for any one of your civil rights, especially in the moment that you need it, you might not afford that. You might be completely unable to afford that, and suddenly, oops, you don't get a speedy trial, you don't get a lawyer or a jury of your peers, or we can just search and siege whatever because you're too poor. Like, that's not how it's supposed to be. These are rights endowed by our Creator, recognized and protected by the Bill of Rights at the founding of our country. These should not be taken for granted, and they should be understood as civil rights earning equal protection. You might also think, though, that, oh, well, yeah, these are certain guns that I might never want or need, so I don't care. I don't even need guns. Well, you might be right that some of these things may never happen to you. You may never go hunting. Okay, fine. You may never have to overthrow a government like we have twice in our history, once at the Revolution and the second time at the Civil War. Hasn't happened in a long time. I hope to God it never happens again. I get it. But you may also believe that you will never live in Texas or California and have to deal with cartels. You may also think that you may live in like New York or Chicago and never have to worry about gang violence, or anywhere in America and worry about somebody trying to take out road rage on you, mug you, or trying to break into your house in the middle of the night. All of these things might actually never happen to you. You may be completely correct, and I hope to God that you are. But that does not mean that you should throw away your right to self-defense, to self-preservation, and self-determination. And at the same time as you throw that right out for everybody else in the country, or at least all the poors that can't afford $5,000 a pop. I understand choice and freedom. I've signed up to defend it. I've done it for about 11 years of my life now. But for these reasons and so much more, if you think, like I said in the example back in the beginning, if you think that all of this sounds egregious as it was applied in the hypothetical, to speech, if you think it would be equally egregious to religion, to search and seizure, to all the other rights in the Constitution, you should think that it is on principle equally egregious as it is applied previously, currently, and intentionally in the future, potentially rather in the future. You should think that it is all equally egregious as it's applied to gun rights, because you may never need or want any of these things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the same is true for everybody, or really anybody else. But please let me know what you think, because I obviously think that I'm right, but you might not. If you liked this, please like it. If you like stuff like this, subscribe for more, because I intend on doing more stuff like this. But also comment thoughtfully whether or not you agree with me. Like, please, this is a discussion that we should be having, because it is a matter of civil liberties, and a $5,000 fee to request your civil liberties, I think, is ridiculous, utterly ridiculous, regardless of the potentiality for negative effects, immediate or long-term, because of some bad actors abusing rights that we all have, that some people take for granted. But again, comment whether you agree or disagree. I'm here for the discussion. I love it. Thank you so much, and I hope that I will see you in the next one.